His Girl Friday is the best screwball comedy of all time, but it is and it isn't. It's certainly one of classic Hollywood's crown jewels, but it twists the concept of screwball comedy from being a rom-com formula into something much, much darker and more satirical. It follows a reporter, Hildy Johnson, as she attempts to quit her job for a quiet life as a housewife, but gets repeatedly roped back into work over a long day by her scheming editor, Walter Burns. The source play, The Front Page, had been filmed in 1931 and would be made again in 1974 with Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon. I'll confess that my introduction to the movie was an inferior remake in the 80s, switching channels with Kathleen Turner, Burt Reynolds, and Christopher Reeves, but the definitive version is unquestionably His Girl Friday. Some romantic comedies are about sexual politics, or class differences, or overcoming personal psychoses. The really weak ones are about basic misunderstandings. The best ones are about a person slowly coming to grips with part of their personality that they've resisted. And that's what His Girl Friday did. Hildy takes a long time realizing what makes her Hildy. And the irony is that Burns, her boss and ex-husband, both makes her hate her career and love it at the same time. I don't see a rosy future for this pair unless there's a lot of explosions and a military coup in their near future, but it's buoyed up by the delight Grant and Russell have in their work relationship. The entire runtime of the film, chopped down from 3 hours on stage to a quick 90 minutes, even with the rom-com elements added, follows the looming execution of an innocent man by hanging. The accused man is stuffed into a rolling desk, but then ratted out by the same reporters who he expected to save him. It's really dark stuff. His only defender is an impoverished woman, painted as a floozy by the press, who throws herself out of a window at one point to protest the execution. His Girl Friday, rooted as it is in hardscrabble Chicago politics, and a man's life literally hanging in the balance, is pretty heavy, and it's that darkness carried over from The Front Page that makes this movie so unique. There's a stereotype of 1930s comedies where everybody talks really fast and the action moves fast and everybody is clever. And this is all that. On a recent rewatch, I insisted that my wife and I watch His Girl Friday with subtitles on because it really goes that fast. No languorous Broadway pauses, even though it's based on a Broadway show. The story goes that Howard Hawks, moving into sound pictures, did scientific tests to see how many words an audience could absorb on average. Here, he hits 240 words per minute. Nobody can even type that fast. But as I was saying, this isn't actually a romantic comedy, though it has a reputation of being one of the greatest of all time. It's more of a cold-blooded satire about the media, with a little rom-com thrown in for good measure. The play it's based on has two straight guys in a very dysfunctional work relationship, which gets mellowed out here by casting Cary Grant as the Machiavellian editor and making his top reporter also his ex-wife. This happened because director Howard Hawks was at a party and began arguing that The Front Page had the best dialogue ever put to print. He grabbed a woman who happened to be there and they read out a couple of scenes. The light bulb lit up for Hawks. The play, which is about a toxic newspaper editor scheming to keep his best reporter on staff, could, with a few tweaks here and there, become a great romantic comedy. And with that in mind, it's clear why Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant seem to spark only when work gets involved. They love their adventures together. If they love each other is a little more vague, but they certainly love the newspaper game. So, once that gender swap was made and Cary Grant and Ralph Bellamy were once again rivals for somebody's affections, casting did not go easily. Ginger Rogers, who would have been great, turned it down. Later, she said she regretted that. Irene Dunne turned it down as well. The studio settled on Rosalind Russell, who they got on alone, and thankfully, she and Grant had excellent chemistry. In the end, casting Cary Grant and Ralph Bellamy makes both anti-hero Walter Burns and his rival Bruce Baldwin considerably more sympathetic, which is good in Grant's case. He's a cad, but we kind of want him to get the girl. But it's a problem for Bellamy's Baldwin. His persecution, just like Christopher Reeves in the remake, seems cruel. Being boring is not a sin.
He's in, Bruce. You better wait here. I'll be back in 10 minutes.
Even 10 minutes is a long time to be away from you.
What did you say?
Huh?
Had Bellamy been a hot but vanilla woman like in the stage play, one would probably buy Hildy ditching his career for a marriage. But here it's a double-edged sword. Russell's Hildy is obviously a career woman, so her abandoning her calling for lots of sex and babies is a little ridiculous. On the other hand, Bellamy is such a nice guy, like Christopher Reeves in the remake, that Cary Grant or Burt Reynolds in the remake is reinstated as a cad despite their charm. Ad-libbing was highly encouraged by Howard Hawks, which allowed Russell to pay a writer on the sly to come up with funnier lines than Cary Grant had. He sniffed this out and would greet her every morning with, so what do you have today? A nice touch. Cary Grant refers to both Bellamy and himself by their birth names during the show, which really annoyed the execs.
It looks like that fellow in the movies, Ralph Bellamy.
Oh, him?
Listen, the last man who said that to me was Archie Leach just a week before he cut his throat.
Is that so?
I understand Hawks' desire to make this movie romantic, but I might have preferred it if Burns was simply trying to reel Hildy back into the career that she was born for, minus the sexual tension. Keep Grant's charm, but drop the ulterior romantic motives. Just a good old work buddy relationship. And that's what was happening on set. Grant took Russell, who was very aware of her third choice status on set, under his wing. He nurtured her and even introduced her to her future husband, at whose wedding Grant served as the best man. And I think Hawks missed a beat here by making sex part of the equation. And as everyone familiar with the original source material knows, he skipped the play's most famous line because of that sex appeal.
Tell him to beat that train and arrest Hildy Johnson. The son of a stole my watch.
The course of true love never did run smooth, but friendship, as Oscar Wilde said, is far more tragic than love because it lasts longer.